Hello, welcome to another video on The Right Mindset. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. Today we are going to be talking about The Silent Patient. This is a novel written in 2019. It's an adult psychological noir. If you don't know, I like to study the prose of the prose. So today we are actually going to be going over the prose. Ultimately, I do this in my spare time, especially when I was starting out. I like to study the prose of the prose, but I do this for my own works and I do it for clients. So here's a sneak peek. This is maybe 10 videos I've done this with. This is going to be a little longer than normal because I'm going to go into a deep analysis of the first 367 words, which is ultimately the first page. If there's a book that you would like me to do this for, let me know in the comments below and I'll put it on the docket. For now, we are going to basically be breaking this book down. The first thing you should know is I'm going to get rid of the colors. I just like to see the sentence structures and how long each sentence is. Before we do that, let's just give it a quick read. Alicia Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband. They had been married for 7 years. They were both artists. Alicia was a painter, and Gabriel was a well-known fashion photographer. He had a distinctive style, shooting semi-starved, semi-naked women in strange, unflattering angles. Since his death, the price of his photographs has increased astronomically. I find his stuff rather sick and shallow, to be honest. It has none of the visceral qualities of Alicia's best work. I don't know enough about art to say whether Alicia Barrington was stand the test of time as a painter. Her talent will always be overshadowed by her notoriety, so it's hard to be objective. And you might well accuse me of being biased. All I can offer is my opinion for what it's worth. And to me, Alicia was a kind of a genius. Apart from her technical skill, her paintings have an uncanny ability to grab your attention by the throat almost and hold it in a vice-like grip. Gabriel Barrington was murdered 6 years ago. He was 44 years old. He was killed on the 25th of August. It was an unusual hot summer, you may remember, with some of the highest temperatures ever recorded. The day he died was the hottest of the year. On the last day of his life, Gabriel rose early. A car collected him at 5:15 a.m. from the house he shared with Alicia in northwest London on the edge of Hampstead Heath, and he was driven to a shoot in Shoreditch. He spent the day photographing models on a rooftop for Vogue. Not much is known about Alicia's movements. She had an upcoming exposition and was behind with her work. It's likely she spent the day painting in the summer house at the end of the garden, which she had recently converted into a studio. In the end, Gabriel's shoot ran late, and he wasn't driven home until 11 p.m. Half an hour later, their neighbor, Barbie Hellman, heard several gunshots. Barbie phoned the police, and a car was dispatched from the station on Haverstock Hill at 11:35 p.m. It arrived at the Barrington's house in just under 3 minutes. All right. I'm not really going to give my opinion on the style or what I would do. This is not a Rewrite the Great video, but it is a study of the prose. So let's get into studying the prose. First and foremost, let's look at the sentence lengths. As you can see, she starts off with a long, I would call this a thesis sentence. It's basically telling you what the deal is. It has a good hook. It's a shocker. Alicia Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband. Great. All right. Then we kind of get into, this is a fairly quick sentence, and then 1, 2, 3 longer sentences, a medium, a long, short, long. I would say this short, very long, short, very long, medium, short, medium, long, medium, long, medium. All right. What does that matter? Well, you're seeing the rhythm of it. They had been married for 7 years. They were both artists. Alicia was a painter, and Gabriel was a well-known fashion photographer. He had a distinct style, shooting semi. So the one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is that the long sentences are earning their place by having what I would call narrative movement. He had a distinctive style, shooting semi-starved, semi-naked women in strange, unflattering angles. Everything in that sentence is building on itself. It's adding some sort of texture. It's not just information for information's sake. But we also know that this is in first person. We know that because I don't know enough. Right? I don't know enough. Her talent. And you might well accuse me. You might well accuse me of being biased. So it's there. The big thing about first person is a lot of times you don't have to sit in, I sat there, I thought, I did this, I did that, right? It becomes repetitive. So a lot of times first person is through the emotional and mental processing of a character. We could get rid of let's get rid of the colors real quick. Just so we can see this a little clearer. All right. But more importantly, when we're looking at this, there's a big we're just kind of getting into it. We're getting into the person's positions and thoughts and ideas. They definitely have a bias or a judgment on this character. We know this main protagonist isn't Alicia Barrington, and we know that it's not her husband, so it's another character. It is noir, psychological, tilt noir. So it's most likely a detective, right? We don't know yet, and that's fine. We're just analyzing, right? If we go into it, let's look at for some things that would be considered a faux pas in writing, just so we could show that you're allowed to use these elements, but more importantly, you want them to have purpose. Before I go into that, though, remember, when you're doing your length of sentences, you want to maintain purpose to their lengths. Don't just make them long for long, and don't just add, don't let it just be, if we're looking, okay, we're just looking. If you're just looking at the sentences, every sentence earns it. This one is saying one thing. They had been married for 7 years. Boom, done. We don't have to say they have been married for 7 years. The marriage was real hard and disastrous, but she got through it. We don't need that. It's too much information, right? But they were both artists. Alicia was a painter and Gabriel was a well-known fashion photographer. By the way, this is not AI. Remember, M-dashes are purposeful. This is an aside to they were both artists. Let's qualify that. She painted, he did fashion photography. That sentence earns the information. This one also, we already read that one. Since his death, the price of his photographs has increased astronomically. All that information is important for that sentence. So when you're writing your sentences, make sure that all the detail in the sentence is being earned. Because again, there's a sentence down here that's really long. Right? So apart from her technical skill, her paintings have an uncanny ability to grab your attention by the throat almost and hold it in a vice-like grip. So apart from her technical skill, sets it up, then we expand on it, right? We're adding more information to it, right? Well, we're exploring it. I'm sorry. We're exploring it because we're going into, apart from her technical skill, her paintings have an uncanny ability to grab your attention. Okay, so that is technically a position from the character. That is what they feel, right? That's their thoughts. By the throat almost. Also getting inside experience. And hold it like a vice-like grip. So again, if you're going to write longer sentences, allow it to sit within a quote-unquote movement or an idea. Do not add multiple ideas to something. However, there's nothing wrong with he jumped off the wagon. He jumped off the wagon, comma, landing on the cobblestone road. His weight shaking through his lower calf, shaking through his calves. All that is explaining that one movement or experience. It's not he jumped off the wagon, landing on the cobblestone, comma, a city built on industrious pasts and violence. It has nothing to do with the cobblestone or him jumping off the wagon. All right. All right, let's get into it. Okay. So we know it's in first person. Let's look at some faux pas. Okay, Alicia was. Hey, don't use the word was. This is a passive sentence, but it does create vague but informative. Remember, when you're writing, you're always trying to add vague but informative. It means just enough information to know what's going on, but not enough to leave us without questions. Alicia Berenson was 33 years old when she killed her husband. But why did she kill her husband? What did the husband do or not do? I need to know more. All right. They had, technically, this is also passive. They had been married for 7 years. They were both artists. Alicia was a painter. Gabriel was well known. Okay. These are all passive, right? Again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just purposeful. We understand that the character is kind of thinking through this. I'm not really going to work on my opinion on this, but ultimately this feels more like they're talking to somebody. So if it ends up they're not talking to somebody by the end of the chapter, then I know they're talking to the reader, but I don't like that specifically. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's an absolute choice. It has none of the visceral work. This is where we start getting into it. This is all one movement, though, because it's all talking about them as artists, specifically her. They were both artists, Alicia, right? And him, right? So since his death, the price of his photography has gone up. I find his stuff rather sick, right? This is all within a movement that is exploring the art stuff, just so you know. It has none. Because this is more of a thought, kind of actually went from past to present. All right. We know that it's written in past tense. I know they know enough about art. Her talent will always be overshadowed by bias. I'm just looking for some faux pas. Faux pas. All right. They moved away from. Oh no. Here's a was. Here's a was. Boom. Was. He was. He was. He was. It was. I don't really like with. I'm gonna mark with. The day he died was the hottest of the year. On this day, the only reason I like with is because it feels too passive. But I like to write extremely active because I write cinematic. But again, you can do this. There's nothing wrong with what's being written on the page here. I'm just showing you. Look at all these was, and they always like don't use was or passive. Well, this is a hit book. You know, this book made some money, and we have look at this just right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 was 9, 10, 11. 11 wases. You got 11 wases. Look, when people tell you don't do certain things, just thank you, I appreciate it, and move on. I'll say what I believe you shouldn't do, or what would make it cleaner. But at the end of the day, remember, you're a writer. You choose what you want and don't want in your books. That helps add and develop your voice as an author. But more importantly, rules are all made up anyway, and they were created by people just agreeing with certain variations. That's why Lord of the Ring books don't really kind of exist anymore. They're more streamlined. That's why there's market ready. There's different styles of prose. All right, so let's get into logical narrative movement. I know people like that. All right. So Alicia Berenson was 33 years old when she killed her husband. Okay. So usually with logical narrative movement, you take an element from the sentence, and then the next sentence is going to either explore, expand, or qualify on that information. Explore means that we're just going to go deeper into the idea. Expand means we're going to add new information. And qualify basically means that ultimately, at the end of the day, here, wait, I have it. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up so you. Do 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 do. Boo 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 boo. I want you. Here you go. Boop. All right, so there you go. Logical narrative movement, right? This allows an element from a sentence to be explored, expanded, or qualified in the following sentence. This allows, okay, for continual reading without deeper thinking. Okay. Now, more importantly, okay. It creates a fast read. I don't know. Fast read isn't necessarily a fast pace. A fast read is ultimately that your brain isn't having to think and connect things. Logical narrative movement takes an element and then connects the next sentence to that element, therefore connecting the logic, and you don't have to go too deep into it, okay? But more importantly, if you're going to expand, so the next sentence either explores, expands, or qualifies. I'm just reading the notes so you have the proper thing. It goes deeper into the element, explores it in detail. So that's explores. Expands by widening the element to connect it to another one. I did that earlier with the example where he jumps off the wagon, landing on the cobblestone. Cobblestone then expands the wagon. You could do it with commas too. All right. And then, of course, you want to also qualify. So qualifying is clarifies the element's meaning or relevance. Okay, this keeps the reader's attention moving without slowing things down. So again, there you go. I'll just leave that there while we go over this. All right. Okay. 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 There we go. I'm just moving stuff around. I'm moving stuff around. Okay. Logical narrative movement. Alicia Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband. So, husband, by the way, you don't have to directly connect it to a specific word. You can connect it to the sense of or the idea of. So husband means marriage. They had been married for 7 years. Okay, so that is a direct connection to husband. They were married. Now we are adding. This is actually, we are expanding. So married, 7 years. We're learning a new thing. All right, but they were married is going to be the connector. So let's do that. Let's do that. Boop, 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 boop. So they were both artists. Now we are doing, what are we doing? We're expanding. We're expanding on who they were in their marriage. Okay. So they were married. At least it's an M dash. Could also be a comma easily. But this is also qualifying. We're qualifying artists. So we are qualifying what kind of artists. She was a painter. Okay. So let's do this. Let's qualify. Qualify. And Gabriel was a well-known fashion photographer. That's qualifying. Okay. Now, okay. So Gabriel was he's a new element. So here he is. We're going to, let's see, he had a distinctive style. We are exploring Gabriel as a photographer. Okay, so that's, again, you don't have to just do one element. You can combine elements or the spirit of an element. He had a distinct style. Ooh, this is where we're actually qualifying it because we're going into the information for it. Okay, now a distinct style, shooting semi-naked women in since his death. All right. The price of photography photos has increased. So is distinct. So the feel or idea of the piece is that he was a photographer and these were the kind of things he would film. And at the end of the day, what's going on? Well, we are now, this next sentence is going into that. We are exploring the idea. We are doing a little bit more work on it. All right, so we're going deeper into it. So that's the exploration. We're going deeper into the photography element, and more importantly, we are expanding on it slightly. Okay, I find his work, okay, this is a qualification or a position. Okay, I find his stuff rather slick and shallow, to be honest. There is a mixture of also expanding on the information because we are creating a position. All right. It has none of this is qualifying their position. So again, I find his stuff rather slick and shallow becomes the element. Okay. And then it has none of the visceral qualities of Alicia's work. So this is doing a couple things. This is actually expanding because we're adding Alicia's best work. We're bringing it back to her. We're bringing it back to her. Okay. But it has none of the visual qualities, is actually qualifying why he feels it's slick and shallow. But it's also expanding to add Alicia's best work, which is probably going to be the next sentence. And I don't know enough about art to say whether. Okay. So this becomes the new element. And he literally says, I don't know about art to say whether her stuff will stand the test of time. This is a position he's creating. Positions are ultimately a belief that a character holds, and it's also, they come out through opinions or positions, a belief, right? Or choices whenever they make a choice, right? But I don't know enough about art to say whether Alicia Barrington will stand the test of time as a painter. So, her talent as a painter. Okay, we're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to use it. As a painter, now we are doing what? We're expanding and qualifying what that means as a painter, even the test of time as a painter. Her talent will always be overshadowed by her notoriety. This is expanding. This is expanding. This is expanding and qualifying her talent, what her talent will be, but it's also a position. So it's hard to be objective. And you might well accuse me of being biased. This is directly connected to, so it's hard to be objective. All right, because the person has an opinion that they just gave on the page, and now we have to move to that. This is what logical narrative movement feels like. It always takes an element from a sentence, and it will either explore, expand, or qualify, or do more than one. It doesn't have to be limited to one element of logical narrative movement, but at the same time, whether you like the writing or not, that's a different story. That's subjective, but objectively, logical narrative movement helps something move a lot smoother, which this does. They had been married for 7 years. They were both artists. Alicia was a painter, and Gabriel was a well-known fashion photographer. He had a distinctive style, shooting semi-starved, semi-naked women in strange, unflattering angles. Since his death, the price of his photographs has increased astronomically. I find his stuff rather slick and shallow, to be honest. It has none of the visceral qualities of Alicia's best work. I don't know enough about art to say whether Alicia Barrington will stand the test of time as a painter, right? So everything is kind of connecting, and it's a stream of consciousness. But logical narrative movement itself, when you're doing that, you have to make sure that every sentence within a movement, this whole passage is a movement. This whole passage is a movement. This whole passage is a movement. A movement stays in an idea and plays with it, okay? This is a long-winded play on the fact that they were both artists, and now we're getting into the opinions, right? But however you write, you always want the sentences to lead to take something from the previous sentence. Okay, the same thing with the so again, this is a movement, and this whole thing is a movement, right? This movement ends and then leapfrogs to another movement. Now we're going to explore the marriage, right? But we're also expanding on it because we're learning that they were artists too. So this passage is going to do work just like each sentence does work. So when you're looking at logical narrative movement, you want sentences and passages and chapters to directly lead to the next thing. And it's either going to explore an idea, it's going to expand on an idea, or it's going to qualify that idea. For a chapter idea, if you talk about a character picking up a sword because they want to train with it, the next chapter might be, more likely than not, them training with the sword or getting ready to train with the sword. Anyway, now, so the point of this passage is about their marriage, and he's talking about Gabriel. So now he's going to talk about Gabriel for a little bit like that. He was killed, right? This is connecting. And remember, as you're writing, you want to build on information too. So you want to take previous information and make sure you maintain movement to all of it. This is clearly continuing his death. Not much is known about Alicia's movement. She had an upcoming exhibition. Anyway, all right, so that's that. Let's look at the next thing. Pace. The pace is the speed at which information is presented to you. This sentence is fast-paced. Oh, yeah, let's get rid of boop, boop. All right. This is a fast pace. This is a slow pace because of all the information we're learning. How do you make that work? You break up the sentences. So again, this is a short sentence. This is a long sentence. This is a long sentence. This is a medium sentence. This is right. This is a short sentence. This is a short sentence. Right? Whatever. This is a long sentence. Breaking it up into those sentences helps with the pace or the presentation of pace because we are learning information in small, medium, and large bits. This whole thing is a chunk. This is a slow pace moment. So we're learning a lot. Therefore, it's slow pace. This, we learn just enough information to finish the thought. Alicia Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband. We learned she's 33. All right. We learned that she's 33 years old. Okay. We learned that she killed her husband. All right. That's two things. Now, this is a quick pace sentence because they had been married for 7 years. It's one piece of information. They both were artists. They both information. Now we're going to basically qualify that. Alicia was a painter. That's 2. Gabriel was a well-known. That's 3. So that sentence has 3 points of information. He had a distinctive style. 1, shooting semi-starved, semi-naked women in strange. This is actually 1. This is 1 descriptive element. Since his death, the price of his photos has increased. That's 1 piece of information. All right. So even though that's a medium-sized sentence, we're only learning 1 thing in that sentence. Okay. Again, if we go back, maybe it'll be clearer if I do this. 33 years old. This is 1 piece of information. She killed her husband is 2. All right. They had been married for 7 years. So remember, vague but informative. We're learning a little bit at a time, but this is what strong writing does. It adds to elements. It doesn't just unfold all the elements. So, wow, she was 33 years old when she killed her husband? That's crazy. Oh, they were married for 7 years? Interesting. Wait, they were both artists. Oh, okay. So that's a new piece of information I just learned. All right. She was a painter. Okay. So that's a new piece of information, right? He was a photographer. Okay. That's a new piece of information. All right. He had a distinctive. This is one big thing of information. All right. Since his death, this is 1 piece of information. Okay. Woo. I find his stuff rather slick and shallow, to be honest. This is 1 piece of information. It has none of the visceral quality. This is 1 piece of information. I don't know enough about art. That's a piece of information. Say whether it will stand the test of time as a painter. This is not technically more information. He's just saying I don't know enough about art. So we're learning. That's a position for him, okay? All right. Her talent will always be overshadowed by her notoriety. That's technically a position. It's him coming up with a position. So it's hard to be objective. Yeah. And you might well accuse me of being biased. That's 1 piece of information. All right. So pace. Pace is the speed at which information is presented to the reader. So as you can see, right now, only 1 sentence, this one right here, had 3 pieces of information. Every other sentence had 1 piece of information. I personally like writing where I use a sentence to sit in a moment, okay? And whether we expand, explore, or qualify those things, it's always about that moment. So even if I use a long sentence, it feels like a movement all itself, right? But some people, they get away with just doing, look, all I can offer is my opinion for what it's worth. There's actually, yeah, I'll give it to them. And to me, Alicia was kind of a genius. All right. Well, that's a position, but this is information, right? When I say position, I'm just saying this is what the character believes, right? Apart from her technical skill, her paintings have an uncanny. All right. So we're learning. technically this is all one piece of information because it's describing it and it's going deeper into it. Anyway, so in just 2 passages we learned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pieces of information in 2 passages. That's a slow pace. Right? But it's a fast read because the logical narrative movement keeps us kind of like moving without having to think about things. And those are 2 different things. You could argue that this is fast paced because we're just learning one thing, then one thing, and then 3 things, and then one thing, one thing, one thing, one thing, one thing. You could argue that each sentence itself has a fast pace to it, but because it all sits in one passage or one movement, it slows the pace down. Even if I was murdered 6 years ago, that's one piece of information. He was 40 years old. That's all right. When did he die? When he was 40. Okay. He was killed on the 25th of August. That's a piece of information. Oh, interesting. It was usually a hot summer. This is 2. Wait a minute. Is she doing a... Is this a pattern thing? With some of the highest temperatures ever... No. This is all this summer. This is 2. All right. The day he died was the hottest of the year. All right. That's important to know. It's noir. All right. So this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of information. All right. I would actually consider that fast pace only because it's 5 pieces. It gets right through it, right to the point. We're learning just enough to keep it moving. Anyway, so when you're looking at pace, remember your writing you should make that choice. Do I want to have heavy pace in the beginning? Do I want to have it be faster pace? If your sentences are holding only one piece of information, it'll feel very like boom, 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 boom. If your sentences are more like this, where it's 3 pieces of information, 4 pieces of information, 5 pieces, that'll slow it down. That'll slow a sentence down. If your passages are just filled to the brim and you're not allowed... For me, like this, I would probably take this information personally, for me and my style, I would take this and just scatter it through the first chapter or the first 4 or 5 chapters. And we would learn this stuff through the movement of the narrative and the character's choices. That's a style. There's no wrong or right answer. That's what I like to do. The reason is because when I write, I like my passages to be shorter like this. I like my passages, I don't really sit in a... Very rarely will you see a passage this long in my writing. And if you do, there's an absolute reason for it. But other than that, all right. What else we got? We already did POV, tense, sentence lengths, soft harp. There are no soft or hard chapter breaks. Show sometimes tell through character experience. All right, there is no show yet. This is all tell. Again, there's nothing wrong with telling. There's nothing wrong with telling if you're using it very purposefully. This is noir, and we are inside a character's head. When you're writing first person, it's a little less, I did this, I got up, and it's more about the experience. So instead of, I sat in the chair looking at the clock, I only had an hour before I had to be somewhere. Instead, it's another hour gone, and my elbow is killing me leaning on this table waiting for the damn alarm to go off. Right? It's through the emotional processing and filtering of that character's experience. Don't get me wrong, third person limited could do that too, but a stronger first person isn't stuck in I. It's playing with ideas. And a lot of times what that turns out to be is just sort of emotional mental processing, right? Again, for me, this feels like the character's talking to the reader. I don't like that in first person. If I do first person, I like it to feel like they're processing the information. Like they're thinking is like, instead of Alicia Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband, I might sit in that where they're discovering that, or they're looking through the folder and it's like Alicia Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband, like question mark, like really? Yeah. Really? I would rather feel like they're processing information than not. All right, there's really, let's see if there's any show. Is there any show? Is there any showing? Is there not much? You had an experience. In the end, half hour later. Nope. This is all telling. All right. Show. The only places I would argue where it might be showing is we're showing who they are. You know, and it's like it's hard to be objective, and you might as well accuse me of being biased. We're showing their positions and who they are, but we're not feeling the world around them. The environment is also like we're in a white space. I don't know where they are. I don't know if they're in a room. I don't know if they're in a car, if they're walking around thinking. I don't know if they're sleeping. I don't know. Whatever. Let's see. Something is happening, but nothing is happening. Ooh. Something is happening, but nothing is happening. What does that even mean? Thomas, what does that mean? I don't know. I'll tell you what it means. When something is happening, but nothing is happening, it means that characters aren't making choices. It means that they're not experiencing anything. It means there's no push and pull. There's no cause and effect. It means that we're not learning who the characters are through the positions. There's no plot, character development, or world building. So let's figure that out. All right. Vince's death. Technically, nothing is happening here. I just want to put that out there. We're just learning information, okay? Here is where so the second half is where now the character kind of gets into it. The character's position there's positions. So the way the character feels, we're having a little contrast or quote unquote conflict against what they set up. Originally, it was just there was a murder. They were married. One was a painter. One was a photographer. By the way, I didn't like their works. Like it goes into that. You could argue something is happening because they are challenging. First of all, they're talking about murder and death, and then they're just really going on about the paintings. So there's a contrast there. It becomes something. All right. I don't really think anything is happening here. It's, again, information, learning stuff. Yes, something is happening, but nothing is happening. We're not getting any pushback. We're not learning anything about the main protagonist or the protagonist. He was killed on his 25th. The 25th. Yeah. Again, when it comes to writing, when it comes to hits, when it comes to selling books, I don't think the book alone is going to be the reason it succeeds or fails. There's marketing, there's author connection or brand. There's a lot involved. Whether a book is good or bad, there are staples to that. But again, it comes down to preference as well. There's objectively good and bad, and then there's subjectively good and bad. I'm not really one to say whether I like this or not. Let's keep that off the table. But at the end of the day, there's some things going on that they're doing very well, and then the fact that nothing is really happening except for this one little beat here with the back and forth thoughts, the positions. It's just a lot of information. New movements. Oh, the movements are there. So they were married. I mean, she killed the husband 3 years ago. 30. She was 33 when she killed her husband. Okay, that's one movement. And then this is about them being painters. Painting. The next movement is Gabriel was murdered 6 years ago. The next movement is Rose earlier card. This is the potential for the accident, the information for the accident. But Thomas, that sounds like something's happening. Learning stuff and a character entering a tavern, sitting down at the bar and ordering a mead is something happening, but nothing is happening. And it's okay that nothing is happening in every single beat or movement, but you do want to put some stuff in there where eventually something does happen, you know? In fact, something as little as like, can I get a mead? We don't have any left. What do you got? Well, I got this, this, and this. Ugh. All right, I'll take that. All right, it's gonna be this much money. That's a lot of money. I only got 2 silver. I'm sorry, it's it. All right, here's the 2 silver, and then they give him change of 2 copper or whatever. Something is happening now. There's conflict, there's challenge, there's all these other things are going on. But do you have to have it all the time? Apparently not. No, no, you don't. All right, these 3 things: plot, character, world. Plot, character, world. Elisa Barrington was 33 years old when she killed her husband. When she killed her husband is plot. 33 years old. She was 33. Plot. Elisa Barrington was 33. This is all plot. It is also technically... She was 33 years old would be character development. We're learning something about her. They have been married for 7 years. Plot. They... yes, plot. You might be able to get away with that also being character development, but they were both artists. That's character development. We learned something about her. She was a painter. Character development. Okay. So again, these 3 things. All sentences must have one or more of these 3 things: plot forward, character development, or world building. They don't have to have all 3 of them. They could have 2 of whatever combination, but they always have to have at least one. And so far, we got it. He had a distinctive style of shooting, blah, blah, blah. Character development. Since his death, plot. The price of his foot. That's plot, because that's probably going... Hopefully, that's going to come up later and be part of the motivations. I find his stuff rather slick and shallow, to be honest. That is character development because we are learning a position from the protagonist. It was none of the visceral qualities of the best works. That is also position, which then makes it character development of the main protagonist. I don't know enough about art. That is technically character development because it is a position. To say whether it was stand the test of time, this is all character development. Her talent will always be overshadowed by notoriety, so it's hard to be objective. This is character development because, again, it's adding to the position that he has about everything that we just did, the artwork. However, I would say that there's a chance that this is also plot, because her talent will always be overshadowed by her notoriety. It is adding substance to the potential of narrative. So, yeah. And you might well accuse me of being biased. Character development. All I can offer is my opinion for what it's worth. Character development. And to me, it was kind of a genius. This is all position. Anything that's position-based is always going to be character development. But as you can see, some things have plot and character development. Very little world building yet. World building is culture, rules, dynamics, things like that. You can almost argue... oh, wait, we don't know if she went to jail yet. The marriage. Oh, there's marriage in the world, so culture, that's world building, right? But if it's known to us, it's not considered true world building. If it is slightly different or off from what our understanding of, like, for example, if there's a plane, that's not world building. All right, unless they are riding horses and there's dragons and magic, and then there's also planes. Now that planes become world building as much as the dragons do, as much as the horses do. Why do horses? Because if we know it's modern times and they're still riding horses, that becomes world building. If it's middle-aged, if it's like medieval epic fantasy and they're riding horses, not so much. Now, if those horses can breathe fire, world building. If only certain people of status can have horses, world building. If only women can ride horses, world building. Because it's setting rules. Anyway. Okay, all right, let's keep it going. As you can see, it's a lot of character. Okay. Exposition. This is all exposition. This is exposition. So exposition. exposition. His opinions aren't necessarily exposition, they're developing character, but exposition, exposition, exposition. Okay. Woo! That's a lot of exposition. Again, not really a fan of lots of exposition, but why is this like this? This is supposed to be like that. All right. Seating. Well, we already saw the seating. The seating is a well-known photographer. Is instinctive shooting and the okay. This is seating. I believe in good writing, it's invisible seating, and I'm only seeing it because that's just how my brain works, and I might be wrong, but hopefully, the price of his photographs has increased astronomically. That is a telltale sign of seating. We are learning. Well, this also could be argued to be foreshadowing as well, but the seed, it's going to connect to something else, which probably be she needed money or something like that, so she killed her husband, and maybe the husband was also a douchebag. The other thing that is seeding is also background information, but it's so much so quick I don't really consider it seeding. But she was 33 years old, she killed her husband, they were married for 7 years. That's 3 pieces of information. If you were truly going to seed it, it's okay to say she's 33 years old. I would almost argue that it's okay that she killed her husband, but this I would bring up later, or later in the chapter, and that would make it pure seeding. They were both artists. I would bring that up later. Or if I brought up she was an artist, I'd bring up that she was a painter and him a photographer later. That would create it to be more seeding. If you're just boom, 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 then it's not really seeding. It becomes exposition. Exposition. As far as vague but informative, the sentences do unfold with vague but informative. She was 33 years old and she killed her husband. Holy crap. What is that about? Oh, they were married for 7 years? Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. They were married. But how long? For 7 years. Oh, wow. They were both artists. Well, why were they married for so long? Well, they were both artists. Oh, they had something in common. She was a painter and him a photographer. Oh, interesting. They were artists? What kind of artists were they? They were. So they present information that creates a question. They were both artists. What kind of artists? Painter, photographer. Okay. He was a photographer? What kind of photographer? Well, he had a distinctive style, shooting semi-starved, semi-naked women in strange, unflattering angles. Oh, okay. Since his death, the price of his photography. Oh, this almost. Okay, anyway. So vague but informative does that. You're allowing the scene to unfold by creating a bit of information to be like, oh, and then you got to play with that information. You either got to explore it, expand it, or qualify it. That's why narrative logical movement is very important. All right, positions and challenging them. So far, we are just setting up. This is page 1. Though, to be fair, you can challenge positions literally in 2 sentences, if not 1. But in this situation, we have learned a lot of positions. We've been talking about them the whole time. I find his stuff rather slick and shallow. So that's a position on their belief on the painting style. It has none of the visceral qualities of Alicia's best work. So that means the position here, there's 2 positions now. He likes Alicia's work better, and he thinks the guy's work is slick and shallow. All right, other than that, we did it. There we go. Boom. I went over it, we organized, talked about, and analyzed the writing. At the end of the day, a lot is going on. The only things that I would say need a little bit work, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion, is there's just far too much. It's very heavy, exposition heavy, and I don't think a lot is happening on the page. I would like a little bit more to happen. We're missing some environment, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Remember, writing is writing. It's all subjective. It's all art. I'm just, whatever. The silent patient. There you go. Have fun with that. Other than that, if there's something else you want me to analyze when I do these videos, the pros on pros, you let me know in the comments, and I will look at those things a little bit deeper. The thing I'm not doing is I'm not breaking it down as a developmental editor or a line editor. I'm just analyzing the writing itself. A lot of what I talked about today is simply a way for me to see what's working and not working, in my opinion. Why? Because for my author voice to grow, I got to accept what I like and don't like. I don't like that it's heavy in exposition, so I know I don't want to do that. So when you're reading a book, there's a difference between reading the book and enjoying it versus I'm reading because I'm learning how to be a writer. Well, you have to make choices and see what you like and don't like, and then you have to analyze that stuff for it to really take weight. In this case, I continue to learn that I don't like exposition. I don't think exposition is bad for other people. I just don't like the way it feels, so I don't want to present that in my books, right? The same thing with filming a movie or a television show. You know, some people like to have those Dutch angles, Kenneth Branagh, right? It happens, you know? But part of analyzing prose is discovering what you like and don't like, what is working, what isn't working, whether it's a hit or not. Like I could do this with, Stephen King, and I have done it talking on the lives where I basically go into what is working and not working, especially when I do the Rewrite the Great series where I rewrite the first page. The point is, analyzing isn't necessarily line editing or developmental editing. It's after it was done and polished and published. You just kind of look through it and you see if it has the elements and needs. What's the POV? What's the tense? Is it past or present or future tense? They will, right? I like to look at sentence lengths. And then when I look at the sentence lengths, are they earning their place? Meaning, are they doing plot, character, or world building? Are they showing experience or choice? Are they, and I like to look at that. Why? Because again, what's working and not working for me, so I could develop my author voice. Other than that, if you didn't know, I have some books available. MakeItRightLeftHere.com. I'm not going to do a whole spiel, but I have a book on outlining. If you don't like the outline, your pantser, the first half of the book just goes over and informs you on what narrative is and what narrative movement looks like. The second half is all about outlining. I do have an epic fantasy book that is available. It is not the polished version. It's the 0, 1st, and 3rd draft with education, information, and breakdowns. That's on Patreon and Substack. Just go to MakeItRightLeftHere.com. And of course, this book is currently available on Amazon. Feel free to jump in. I am slowly but surely finalizing. Actually, on my list, I have to do, says here I got to set up the contents page. So that'll be fun. I'm going to try to do that today. More importantly, this is not the artwork, but this book is also available on Patreon and Substack. Only the 0 drafts currently. I am going to try to traditionally publish this book, so I might not go further than showing the 0 drafts, but you could see what they look like. And I also do information and education on those Patreon and Substack. You got to join the Scribe tier on Patreon, or just join my Substack. If you haven't done so already, please bloop the beard and bloop the like button. And as always, subscribe if you love what you've been hearing, because why not? Why not? Because at the end of the day, remember, we're here to celebrate and elevate and support. So subscribe. Also, if there are any videos you'd like me to do, any subjects, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, if you have questions, writing in general, or on your books, tell me in the comments. I'm happy to do what I can. Make a right left here. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.